What if the weapon that ends your dependence on the power grid weighs less than a house cat, fits in a backpack, and was forged from seawater-resistant aluminum in a German workshop, where engineering is treated as religion? This is the ElvWiS 3, a vertical axis so compact it looks like a piece of modern art. Yet inside its precision-machined frame lives a 240-watt electrical generator that turns every passing breeze into raw battery charging power, 24 hours a day, in storms, in darkness, in the dead of winter when your solar panels are buried under snow and useless. It does not care about wind direction. It does not need to swivel or hunt like those massive horizontal propellers you see on hillsides. It stands still, omnidirectional, arrogant in its simplicity, catching turbulent air from every angle simultaneously and converting it into 12-volt or 24-volt DC electricity, using nothing but the physics of magnets and motion. Here is how this machine actually works, because the engineering is where the shock lives. The ElvWiS 3 is built around a two-stage Savonius rotor, a vertical design that uses curved aluminum alloy discs arranged to catch wind like two opposing scoops. When wind hits the turbine, it pushes against the concave surfaces of these discs, while sliding past the convex ones, creating a differential force that spins the entire rotor around a solid, galvanized steel axis. Because it is a vertical axis design, it does not matter if the wind shifts direction every second, which is exactly what happens on rooftops, balconies, and in urban canyons where traditional horizontal turbines become disoriented and inefficient. The rotor turns a double-disc generator packed with 24 neodymium magnets arranged in a 12-pole configuration, producing three-phase alternating current without brushes, without cogging, without the mechanical drag that kills lesser machines before they even start spinning. A built-in rectifier converts that AC into direct current at either 12 volts or 24 volts, feeding straight into your battery bank with no complex inverter required. The entire assembly weighs approximately 3.5 kilograms, housed in seawater-resistant aluminum that laughs at salt spray, rain, and corrosion. Now let us talk about power, because this is where excitement meets reality. The ElvWiS 3 is rated for 240 watts at its peak, which means at strong, sustained wind speeds, likely in the range of 10 to 12 meters per second. This little German machine is pumping out nearly 1/4 of a kilowatt of continuous charging power. In average residential conditions, where wind speeds on a rooftop might hover between 3 and 5 meters per second, you will not see the full 240 watts. You might see 30 to 80 watts of sustained output. But here is the critical detail that changes everything. Unlike solar, which quits when the sun sets, this turbine generates whenever the air moves. Over the course of a windy night, it can push 1 to 2 kilowatt-hours into your batteries. Over a stormy week, it can deliver 5 to 10 kilowatt-hours. That is enough to keep a 200 amp-hour battery bank at float charge indefinitely, to run LED lighting, communication equipment, refrigeration compressors, and water pumps in an off-grid cabin without ever touching a generator or the grid. Pair it with 400 watts of solar panels and a modest battery storage system, and you have a hybrid renewable plant that covers both the calm, sunny days and the dark, windy nights, creating a loop of energy independence that no utility company can meter, tax, or shut off. The true shock of the ElvWiS 3 is not that it replaces an entire power plant. It is that it democratizes access to wind energy in a way that was never possible before. Traditional horizontal turbines need towers, zoning permits, clearance from neighbors, and wind speeds that most suburban rooftops simply do not provide. They are noisy, they vibrate, they kill birds, and they look like industrial monstrosities. This machine is silent by comparison, small enough to mount on a balcony railing or a boat deck, and engineered with German precision to survive decades of exposure without maintenance. It is a 12-volt and 24-volt DC machine, which means it integrates directly into the same battery ecosystems used by RVs, sailboats, overland vehicles, and off-grid homesteads without expensive conversion equipment. When the grid goes down and your neighbors are sitting in darkness, your batteries are still charging because the wind does not care about substation failures or geopolitical wars fought over pipelines and fuel routes. Every watt this turbine generates is a watt you do not buy from a centralized system that burns fossil fuels, funds conflict, and bills you for the privilege of dependence. We have been conditioned to believe that energy independence requires acreage, capital, and government approval. The ElvWiS 3 destroys that lie. It is 3.5 kilograms of proof that you can harvest the atmosphere itself, store it in batteries, and power your essential life without waiting for permission from a utility executive or a politician. It will not single-handedly erase a massive suburban electric bill, but it will keep your lights on when the world goes dark. It will keep your communications alive when the towers fail. It will charge the batteries that run your medical devices, your security systems, your water filtration, and your heat, using nothing but the moving air that surrounds you every single day. The German engineers who built this machine understood something fundamental. The future of energy is not about bigger centralized plants. It is about millions of small, resilient nodes, each capturing what they can from the environment, each reducing the load on a grid that grows more fragile and more politicized with every passing year. The ElvWiS 3 is not just a wind turbine. It is a declaration of independence in aluminum and magnet form, spinning day and night, quietly proving that the most powerful energy revolution might not come from a fusion reactor or a solar farm the size of a city. It might come from a 3.5 kilogram disk on your roof, turning wind into freedom, one revolution at a time. But there is something else about this machine that the spec sheet does not scream, something you only understand when you hold it in your hands or bolt it to your balcony in a blackout. The ElvWiS 3 is not just a stationary fixture. At 3.5 kilograms, it is a portable power plant. You can unscrew it from your roof rack, pack it into a backpack, and deploy it at a remote campsite, on a drifting sailboat, or in the ruins of a grid-down neighborhood where the only thing moving is the wind. This is where the 2-volt, 12-volt, and 24-volt flexibility becomes critical. The turbine does not force you into one electrical architecture. If you are running a small sensor array or a trickle-charge maintenance system on a vehicle battery, the low-voltage output keeps things simple. If you are building a serious off-grid homestead with a 24-volt battery bank and an inverter, it slots in without adapters or headaches. The built-in rectifier handles the conversion internally, so the wires coming out of the housing are already DC, already matched to your system, already ready to connect to a charge controller that feeds your lithium or lead-acid batteries without drama. There is no external inverter to fail, no complex wiring to overheat, just 2 wires and wind. Let us run the real numbers over time, because this is where the fantasy of free energy collides with the arithmetic of physics, and the result is still staggering. Assume you live in a coastal or elevated area where average wind speeds hit 4 to 5 meters per second. Your ElvWiS 3 is not hitting its 240-watt peak, but it is reliably producing 40 to 60 watts for 12 to 16 hours a day. That is roughly 1 kilowatt-hour every 2 days. Over a month, that is 15 kilowatt-hours. Over a year, that is pushing 180 kilowatt-hours of electricity generated from moving air alone. In a suburban American context, that might only shave $20 to $30 off your annual bill, which sounds trivial until you realize that this is not a grid-tied money-saving device. This is a survival tool. In an off-grid cabin, 180 kilowatt-hours per year is the difference between running a generator 100 hours and running it 0 hours. It is the difference between your freezer staying cold through a week of storms and your food rotting. It is the difference between your radio working when the cell towers are down and sitting in silence. The economics change completely when the grid is not an option. And this is where the war ends. Not with tanks or treaties, but with millions of balconies and rooftops and RVs and sailboats and remote clinics, each producing their own power from the indifferent generosity of the atmosphere. The ElvWiS 3 doesn't care who controls the oil fields in the Middle East. It doesn't care about Russian pipelines or OPEC production cuts or LNG tanker routes through contested straits. It doesn't fund dictatorships. It does not finance proxy wars. It does not create strategic vulnerabilities that send young people to die over buried hydrocarbons. Every watt you generate from the wind is a watt you do not fund with blood and geopolitics. The German engineers who designed this machine did not set out to end war, but they built a device that makes the resource wars of the 20th century technically unnecessary for anyone who owns one. When your neighbor is raging about gas prices and energy sanctions and which country controls which shipping lane, your turbine is spinning, your batteries are charging, and your conscience is clean because your power does not come with a body count.